Welcome to the Mystery College podcast. Today we're doing an interview with William Mistele. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
It's great having you on. I've been a fan of your work for a long time, like your books on the Undines, the Four Elements, your poetry, and your is such a great resource for people who are practicing Franz Bardon's system of
Oh,
initiation
thanks.
or Kabbalah or evocation, invocation. So, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what started you on your journey into the practice of hermetics.
I like to tell people that for me, Bardon's Hermetics is so dangerous that you need like an angel or God to appear to you, or you need a purpose that a problem that can only be solved using magic, or you need a superhuman patience, what Bardon suggests you need. I have all three, but that still doesn't make it less dangerous. So there's always a chance when you're dealing with Akasha, which is, among other things, infinity. You're going to find yourself experiencing feelings and mental awareness and physical sensations that have no reference point in human history. So you got to be ready for that. It's like walking on a lake. Lao Tzu says that, the men of wise of old were like people walking on thin ice. You got to be very careful of each step you take. So what got me going was basically from childhood. In third grade, we were told to duck and cover under your desk because your city could be incinerated in a few seconds. So that theme of nuclear war, of the ending of the human Homo sapiens, continued through my life. There's been 5 or 6 times when we were seconds away from an all-out nuclear war. So a lot of people don't think geopolitically with magic, but somehow my family background, kind of with my relatives who were extremely creative with their technology, kind of got me thinking about, how do you apply what is truly meant to be the highest wisdom, Hermeticism, to solve geopolitical problems. And I felt I need to do that because I would be so distracted by other things in life. I needed a kind of mission, something to focus my consciousness, my training on, in order to keep myself on the straight and narrow. So, other than that, I'm just absolutely fascinated by the beauty and mystery of the universe. And Bardon comes along with over 500 spirits who each have their own introduction to what life is all about. So that's that. We're kind of fit together.
Beautiful, beautiful, and also plays into your experience and practice of Kabbalah too, in some of your commentaries.
Yeah, some of the cosmic letters are wonderful for working with groups, societies larger, like a nation or even the whole planet. So cosmic letter G, which kind of grass green water element. I like to think that if the Roman Empire Senate had practiced the cosmic letter G for half an hour each week, we would now have colonies in other solar systems. It's just very benevolent, and yet it embodies Saturn. You get what you work for, but you're motivated to work for the highest and the best in life. So I kind of like that combination of karma and blessing, fulfilling life in the deepest way. And that's just one cosmic letter. So it fits Kabbalah.
Totally, totally, and I love that example you made of the Roman Empire because they had some machinations and some steam engine prototypes, and if they, in some sense, they probably could have industrialized if they were practicing letter G, and had
Yeah,
that focus.
500 years earlier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'd love to go into some of the geopolitics too, because you've also wrote extensively on your site, like under some essays about, like colonial Bardonists and talking about some pathways through which to work through the Bardonian system to help people be like active politically for or active in like logistics or with being peace ambassadors and solving a lot of the world's problems. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the cosmic letter U for me is very good for dissolving negativity. It can work on a personal level, but it has an industrial level application. So if you're very motivated and you have the extra time and energy and you've worked on yourself, you can actually meditate on specific individuals, CEOs of corporations, dictators of countries, and you can work at dissolving their negativity. So government is meant to be, people, as strange as it may sound, they're meant to be truthful, they're meant to be unselfish, and they're meant to be fair, just. Now that's the opposite of what motivates almost every politician on earth. But the cosmic letter U comes in and it says negativity cannot exist in a void. So it's kind of like taking your advanced Buddhist disciple, your bodhisattva, and combining him with political activism, where he has the empathy of the mermaids, where he can feel a part of anybody. And he can also meditate within the consciousness of a dictator. So it doesn't interfere with the guy's free will, but it changes his aura. So when people look at him or think about him, they aren't afraid or terrorized, but they think that, hey, we need a better nation. Let's have an upgrade here. So that's what it's meant to do, is limit the ability of negative individuals from harming others. That's its output from practicing. Some Tibetan lamas suggested I actually hire Buddhist monastery to do the prana paramita or the kalachakra meditations within the consciousness of various dictators. And I've done that in the past, and I plan to do more of that in the future. But it's a nice way of an individual who is doing their own practice can set aside 10 minutes a week or an hour or whatever and participate in shaping the destiny of the planet. Now you can try that in your own experience with, if you're around someone who's very negative, they're incredibly insecure, or they like to put other people down, or they're very opinionated, whatever. And just imagine you're a vast empty space with nothing in it. And you're still talking with them, everything's normal, but the subtext of your interaction is the void. You're sitting here in a Buddhist monastery, and there's nothing there. So it's hard for the negative principle to act if there's nothing to attack or grasp or hold on to or to destroy. So usually an ordinary person who's negative will become calm and reasonable when you have that kind of vibration emitting from your aura. Now, dictators spend every minute of every day for decades, their whole lifetime, being negative, perfecting it, and they're very good at it. And some of them, if you do this void on them, you may remove them, but you're going to bring to the surface someone who's immune to that particular meditation. Magic doesn't work on them, in which case you're going to have to upgrade and actually make yourself a part of the universe. The dynamic forces unfolding the universe are present within you. This is a Mars Gavura initiation. You feel joined to the universe and what's unfolding it. So there's different levels to the practice, but I like that one.
Brilliant and beautiful, and I love that application of the letter U, and in the case for which that void meditation, that complete positivity, that fullness doesn't isn't it may not work for particularly negative dictators or individuals than the participating and acting and taking on a role in society through that Mars initiation in being invigorated with purpose and falling place in society. That's awesome. Um, yeah, and one thing I wanted to also cover with you is some of the work that you've done with elementals, spirits, and perhaps some things that are native to your local Hawaii. Because when I've been to Hawaii and I went to this bookshop actually, and I picked up your a copy of your Undine book, what was allegedly like the the furthest west bookstore in the hemisphere. I have a little book a little bookmark card from it in the copy of your book there, and I thought that was kind of fun. Um, but I've also seen like a lot of spirits in Hawaii when I've visited there, like some kind of in more indigenous type spirits, especially like in certain more sacred sites. So I'm wondering if you've had some similar experiences or a relationship with some of the vast array of mythology or beings that exist in your
Well,
hometown.
the when I was on the Big Island for the first time, that night I dreamed of Pele, the goddess of the volcano, and she appeared to me within a waterfall, not within the volcano. Now I knew a local guy whose grandfather was a kahuna, and whenever he runs into other Hawaiian priests, they always say, "Hey, you've got all these spirits around you. You should be practicing kahunaism." But he became a Christian because his his grandpa was also involved in spiritual warfare. Because you had different kings on different islands, they were each protected by their own kahunas, and they were also trying to conquer other islands. So the kahunas were in warfare with each other as well. So he didn't want to be a part of that. But he did say that Pele is also a goddess of the waterfalls, water. So there is that feeling I actually got it right, in spite of appearances. So she told me don't try to work with the local kahunas because they're so angry at, they're still recovering from the invasion. I
Mm,
mean, 90% of the local Hawaiians were killed by the different diseases Captain Cook brought and other people brought to the islands.
mm,
And then you had the U.S. taking over Hawaii, overthrowing the monarchy. And then you had the kind of the Christians suppressing the local religion. It just came to a very bad vibration. Now, I knew Dana and Perry, who actually worked with a kahuna, and the kahuna said, "I've taught you all I know, now go." So there are people who are doing it a different way. But I have to be very careful with esoteric oral traditions because, especially their own disciples, get really pissed seeing a white man come along and interact with the local tradition. Now I had a Hopi Indian shaman healer. He said he'd never teach a white man, but I said, "Can we meditate for a few minutes?" So I meditated on the goddess of the earth with him, and after we opened our eyes, he started teaching me about uh, Hopi India or his own shamanistic ways of healing. So you can connect directly person to person if you had the vibration. They send you understand me, therefore I can work with you.
mm,
The Bardon elementals are for Bardon, the kings and queens of the four elements. And so they're not associated with any particular religion or tradition. They work with the entire biosphere of the planet. Now, beneath them, there's all sorts of things. So I haven't been that active with local spirits. There was one girl here, and I took her to this one restaurant, 24/7, it's called, in Waikiki. And while we were waiting for the hostess to do some, I said, it's going to get very cold. And then because I was very curious, so I called her inner spirit, which is an actual mermaid. So she is an incarnation for me as I read her aura. of an actual astral mermaid who is separate from her, but still within her. So when I touch her aura, it's water. And she grows up like other incarnate elementals. There's no manual next to the crib that says how to be a human being. They start from scratch like anybody else. And you're not told you're a mermaid because that would kind of take away having the human experience. It's like, oh, you're not one of them, so you don't need to participate. The whole point is participating. Get the human experience so you're part of two worlds. So when I sat down with this girl on the beach, we could meditate on the ocean, and both of us felt simultaneously we were the ocean. We were each of us equally. I was her, she was me, two of us were the ocean. It was really neat to be able to do that because she had that fluidity, but it still was outside her personal biography. She wasn't quite ready to say, oh, okay, I'm going to set aside the entire human world with its 10,000 years of civilization, or 100,000, 200,000, and I'm going to participate in an awareness of nature, which is millions and hundreds of millions of years old. So that's a big step. And Bardon asks his students to do that in chapter 3. You are just the fire element. The whole universe is just fire. That's putting aside human civilization. A lot of people can do that and say, oh, this is fine. What's the problem? But other people, it's like, they are suddenly in their nervous system connected to perceptions and feelings and energies and powers, which are not taught in high school or seminaries or Oxford or Harvard. So that in a way, that was a local spirit running into me, but it's within a human being. I run into them every few months. Someone will email me and wants to know what I think of their aura, and they vary. But I'm, for the purposes of learning and education, I try to stick just with the Bardon elementals, although I could branch out. But then I'm dealing with a William Mistele spirit, a spirit William Mistele identified. Instead of a spirit, you have a Bardon tradition and sigil and description about. So I like the idea of promoting that particular tradition. But anybody who's psychic can, there's also, I went to a Heiau here that centers on herbal healing. And the next, it's like, next thing I knew, I was down at the local shop where they have walls lined with different herbs, taking home the different powders there. So I'm not motivated to herbal healing, but it just, the spirits get inside you and want to guide you and say, hey, this is what we do. Become our disciple here. So that's kind of one local interaction I had.
Yeah, beautiful. I appreciate you bringing it back to, like, yeah, we can have our own anecdotal experiences and such, but like, going back to like the Bardon book, that's something there's descriptions there. Everyone can access that with enough practice and diligence with the system. Yeah, that's awesome. And so what are some of your thoughts on the practice of mental wandering or exploring some of the various spheres, both the Earth sphere, but also like the Moon sphere, the Mercury, Venus, Sun? How's that been for you?
Right. I have some essays on each of the spheres
Mm.
and some spirits. I'll get that out at some point. The In 1975, when I first got my first Bardon book, a girl initiated hermetics. I was in the oldest building in Tucson. We were in a cabin from the original ranch we were renting, and I put the book on the table. And that night, we had a storm and the roof caved in and fell on the book.
Mm.
So maybe that was a warning to me. Jumping ahead, Bardon appeared in my dreams a couple of times. And one time I said, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, stop messing around with spirits and work on the four elements. So I wrote the Four Elements book that came out through Tanya Falcon Press. The what impressed me so much with especially the second book, The Practice of Magical Evocation, that here's a guy coming along and he's saying here's 500 spirits, and I'm describing most of them, and get to know them. I didn't know, where's this coming from? It's not part of any tradition. I'm not an initiate of Hermeticism. My father was a 32nd degree Mason, but he never even told me. My mother, I said, Mother, what is this uniform in the closet? And she said, oh, your father's a 32nd degree Mason, and I'm initiated into the daughter of Nile. so, so it was there in the family, but I didn't get any direct initiation into it. So I spent 3 years reading the auras of these spirits. I was taking a class in psychic massage, and the teacher was saying, now feel the aura along the leg here, or the arm. And I noticed I could feel not just the aura with my hand, but I could feel anybody's aura anywhere. And that applied to spirits as well. So if I think of M. Nepe, who was in the lunar sphere, it's like I have an instant connection to his aura. If I think of Ava Blackwell, who's an actress in LA, I think she is now, she's extremely psychic. If I touch her aura, she often says, I can feel you touching my aura. So there's a reciprocity. There was a girl on Kauai, and she was the oldest of the incarnated mermaids I've interviewed. And so she kind of gave up because she never met anyone like herself. And she said, how do you know I'm a mermaid? And I held up my hand and I felt her aura. And I said, it's just water in your aura. And she emailed me a couple hours later and said, I felt what you felt in your hand. Because they can do that. You can get inside another person, feel what their sensations and perceptions are. And so that was her first real confirmation of what she really was, that she could take as a real input. So I could do that with all the spirits. Now, it doesn't work if I don't know anything about that type of spirit speciality. Like Radina in Scorpio specializes in Kabbalistic healing. And he said, come back when you're more of a master of the magnetic fluid. So you have to know both electric and magnetic. So I thought, well, that's fair enough. When I first touched Istafal's aura, she's one of the mermaid queens, I said, I'll never meet a woman this beautiful, because her receptivity was kind of superhuman. It's almost divine. She can reach your deepest desires and dreams, even what you're not aware of, and she can start manifesting them. And she's motivated to do that because that's what water does. It fulfills life in every conceivable way. She's an embodiment of that principle. So that I could understand. It's kind of shocking, though. I kind of like, Now with spirits of the earth zone, they're all oriented towards manifesting something here on earth, no matter how Kabbalistic or spiritual they are. I said, let's accomplish something. If we're going to change you, let's change you in a real permanent way that's valuable. That's different from other spheres. So one spirit I tuned into was Zagreona in Virgo. My moon's in Virgo. So he said, and I said, help me with my writing. He said, oh, you were a bard in past lives. So he gave me a muse who brought back, kind of like that was active in a previous lifetime. Now, the Celtic bards, they spent 7 years in a cave in darkness, like St. Columba was a Celtic bard, or St. Patrick. So they come out, they're highly trained, and they're in a totally different perceptual frame of mind. You look around, I sit and look at a Zen well in a monastery for 45 minutes, and I look around afterwards, the whole world looks new. They spent 7 years. So he brought back this muse, and it was like I had I had to write a poem every day. And it was shocking because, again, emotionally, because it's like the universe is filled with beauty and wonder and awe, and you're not a part of it, but you can sense it. Write a poem about that, and that's very different, very schizophrenic. Hey, what are you doing? I'm not a Celtic bard. So an Earthstone spirit will say, "What can I give you that will enable you to fulfill your deepest purposes?" And you have to be ready for that because their perception may not be the same as yours. So some other spirits I feel very connected to, very comfortable with Sagila in Pisces. I put what Bardon had recommended, a little electromagnetic volt in a horseshoe magnet. And I said, I want to manifest what you teach. And I had a dream in 1979 when I did this of Russia and the US going head on with each other in undersea missile bases. And it was like, oh, it's kind of like Putin now. He's been threatened to use nuclear weapons for the last 2 years with Ukraine. So it's like, oh, one of his options is I'll just set off a nuclear weapon over the Black Sea. It won't hurt anybody, but you'll know I'm serious. So imagine the kind of one-upship where Russia and the U.S. are playing this kind of Russian roulette beneath the sea with their two missile bases. Oh, I can see you don't have a base there, so I can set off an atomic bomb nearby. What does it matter? You can't go. Well, we can do the same. This is like Israel and Iran right now. We just sent 300 missiles, and 99% of them you knocked down. But you're Israel. You say, you can't send 300, 400 missiles at us and not have us respond. And so Biden's on the phone trying to mediate. And he says, well, I'll let you invade the last city as long as you don't attack Iran. Because, we're going to cut off our aid if you don't kind of play nice. So this spirit thing involves our world, but you're shifting into a timeless and spaceless dimension of awareness, and you're the vehicle that has to mediate the skills and powers of that spirit with the realities of the age of the world in which you live. So the idea is that what Bardon was trying to tell me, don't just read all their auras and say how wonderful. Focus on a one or two which can enable you to accomplish something very practical, that a value that will endure. When I contacted the lunar zone, it was what Bardon has said. You may find yourself disoriented. But after a while, it becomes, oh, this is like home. I love it. Mercury is like this ferocity of conviction and faith and certainty about manifesting the higher divine purposes. So, and I think I get that from my 5 generations of fathers before me. All had a profound faith in God from the Protestant tradition. And so it's like there's these angels of Mercury behind me whispering in my ear. I tell this at all the funerals I go to of relatives. And they're saying, what impossible things, what problems would you like solved? What missions would you like accomplished on Earth? We stand ready to serve. But it comes with a huge price. They're so intense. You need that peace and serenity of the lunar sphere to calm yourself down with this incredible electrical energy going through you. So the Mercury's really neat. You can solve problems that can't otherwise be solved, but it may burn you out. You have to be very up for it. The the sphere of Venus is absolutely gorgeous beings who embody the Earth, the Moon, and Mercury. And so if you say, oh, teach me about love, as one friend of mine did with the Venus spirit, she basically sends him back and said, you don't have any spirit. So he finds himself the next day falling madly in love with a friend of his. And after a month or two, it's like they have a passion affair. And he said, he goes back to the spirit and says, this is too much for me. I want my life back. Call it off. So that you got to be prepared for the Venus sphere too. When you go to the solar sphere, it's just absolutely astonishing how wondrous these beings are. For me, the 58 or so spirits of the solar sphere Bardon describes, each are so empty inside, like an Akashic mirror, that so pure that they can reflect the original emanation of God, let us say, the highest deity pertaining to the solar system. So they're incredibly wildly creative. But again, you can imagine a yogi who's mastered his tradition, who's become an asset on the world stage of spirituality, kind of like Swami Rama as an example. But he's not yet in the solar sphere where he's radiant with light. He's not ready to be anointed with the wisdom of the divine to accomplish some sort of divine mission. So that's what the solar sphere is too. It's kind of a preparation for an integration of all things. And then you go to Mars, it's like, what's the mission? You unite with some power of the universe, like water, earth, air, fire, in their cosmic planetary sense. And then you use that to fulfill a mission. So one of the spirits embodies the earth element of silence. And he says silence is the absolute weapon of war. No enemy can, it's like a mountain range. No enemy can fly over it or climb it or understand it or attack it. It's just too powerful. It's like a force field in itself. That's the kind of Mars approach. You hit the Jupiter spirits. They're incredibly benevolent. They're much easier to work with, but you find yourself over your head. You may find wonderful opportunities coming to you, but may not be ready to utilize them. And Bardon says the Saturn spirits don't teach magic or Kabbalah. They're like probation officers for people who are violating magic and the rules of evolution. But I love them. That's just what I want. I want to be a probation officer for dictators. Here's the red lines. You can't do this. You can't do that. You got a penalty. You got a penalty. You're in the penalty box. And that's all Saturn. I like that. And again, their attitude is truth instead of lies, justice instead of injustice, and unselfishness instead of being selfish. Now, the problem with the planet Earth from from the point of view of the ecosphere of the four elements is that we have what I call an autonomous, independent fire archetype. And any politician on Earth is tempted or immediately touched by this archetype, which says whatever power you have, you've got to get more and forget about who it harms. So that's what I get in a lot of dictators. They perfectly embody that. The human being is gone. You're the dictator. It's like with Saddam Hussein. You want the human being back, you have to take away his power. And then when he's interviewed for 6 months, interrogated by the Allied forces, he says to the interrogator, I feel closer to you than my own sons. See, the human being came back because he's not able to go out and kill thousands or tens of thousands of people. So that archetype of fire is way more powerful than the water, earth, or air. So if you're dealing with that, Saturn's a nice reference point because again, it's the void, the emptiness, nothing here to attack, nothing to grasp, no one attacking, nothing to attack with. It's just pure consciousness. And what does Saturn really want? It wants perfect cosmic enlightenment. It wants you, in the end, every human being, to stand in perfect freedom. And it won't stop until it gets that. So it oversees all negative as well as positive spirits, because the negative spirits, they say, with a sense of humor, we're much better than the angels. Look at what we can do. We can get people to commit to the light. They're so scared of the destruction we cause in their life, they reach the lowest point, and only then do they say, it's my fault. I've got to find another way. That's the demons talking. So Saturn oversees said the negative principle has a learning curve. You can't just take away people's demons because what's facing them may be chaos. So the demon is an upgrade, and there's a learning curve. And at some point, they say there's got to be something better. So that's the nature of that sphere of Saturn. Uranus spheres Bardon doesn't describe, but they introduce knowledge that creates new civilizations. So you could say that the internet is a gift from the spirits of Uranus. So in a way, you don't need to study magic. We have the internet. You can almost do anything with the internet and AIs and so forth that you can do with magic. Not quite, but gets close because it's a gift from those spirits, from my point of view. So that's the hierarchy for me. Bardon talks about extraplanetary spirits and other solar system, and you meet these star seeds who are incarnated from other civilizations elsewhere, and their vibrations completely different. So they had a harder time as incarnated elementals to figure out what is life going on in this place. It's not like anything we can imagine. And this one girl says, the Earth is the most exciting planet in this galaxy. You never know what's going to happen next. Everything's an if. We're on the edge. If you want excitement, after spending 1,000,000 years in a civilization where everyone thinks, acts, and feels the same, come to the Earth. Everyone has their own subconscious. They're prejudiced in their own point of view. And you get to decide for yourself what you want to become. You can't do that on a lot of other planets. So that's the hierarchy.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much for being on this call today. It was really fun and enjoyable and insightful speaking with you on all these scopes around Franz Bardon's work, some anecdotal experiences, and you know, speaking to a mind who's shared a lot of beautiful poetry and books.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much.
And take care.
Bye.